Assalamu alaikum beta. This is today's last session and I hope कि इस session में हम जो भी points हमारे रहते हैं we'll complete them. I will try my best to make you understand everything in detail. So first of all, let me share my screen with all of you. आपके साथ screen को share करूं. I hope कि screen आपको अभी visible होगी बेटा. So where it is. See, beta, the first charge, the answer of first charge is done. I had tried my best to explain you from the different aspect as well that how Sir Philip Sidney answered the first charge. The first charge was the poetry is the waste of time. This is the first charge. Let me highlight this one that this is done. This was the first charge. It is done by Stephen Gosson, and then this is the answer of first charge. Let me highlight this answer as well. Okay, now move further on the second. Now let's move back. This is the second charge. Now we are going to going for the answer of this chart. Poetry is the mother of lies. Okay, beta. Now move further to the second answer. So answer of second chart. Here is the answer of second chart. Sidney says that the poet does not lie because he never believes that his fiction is true and can never lie. Here, this point clears each and everything. It clears each and every confusion as well. Stephen Gosson just said that the poetry is the mother of lies, but here he just replied that the poet can never lie. Poet does not lie because poet never believes that his fiction is true. Because lies always done on the things which are believed to be true. If someone would say that whatever I'm saying, whatever I'm writing, that is true, so there might be possibility that I might lie in order to make good impression, that people will think that this person is very credible, this person never lies, this person speaks the truth, this person writes the truth. But here the concept of lie is entirely different in presented in terms of imagination. Like, poets never believe that whatever he has imagined that is true, neither they believe that their imagination is wrong. They never believe that their imagination is true or wrong. There's nothing about true and false, good and bad, but it's about the feelings and emotions, and the imagination is always ideal. So they are focused on idealism. The poet is focused on idealism only, so he idealized the things. So that part, the poetry is the fiction. So say he never believes that my fiction is true. Poet can never ever say that my fiction is true. So he never believes, he never claims that my fiction is true. If the poet is not claiming that his fiction is true, then how we can call him that he's a liar? How we can call the poetry is the mother of lies? Because he's not claiming to be true, to be right. So it would be injustice with poetry and the poet to call them as a liar. So that's why Sidney just said that the poetry has nothing to do with the lie and the truth, but poetry is just based on imagination. It is based on the fiction. Poetry is based on the idealism. So it has nothing to do with the right and the wrong, but it is based on the imagination and the idealism. So it is a fiction, and the poets never claim that their fiction is true. If a poet is claiming that his fiction is true, then that person would not be the real poet. So that means it is the man, it is the person who's actually corrupting the poetry. So poetry is being corrupted by people, and that person should be criticized, that poet should be criticized, and his poetry should be criticized, and his poetry could carry the lies. His poetry could be the mother of lies, but not of the real poets. So this is a big difference between them. So poetic truths are ideal. He says that whatever the poetic truths are, they are ideal and they are universal. That means the imagination is universal. So the imagination is accepted in all around the world at every corner of the world. So that's universal. Therefore, poetry cannot be a mother of lies. More importantly, now let's move back to the concept of the philosophy of Plato. That what he just said that poetry is removed from reality and it is imitation of imitation. That means poetry is removed twice from the reality. What does this mean? So there is an example which I had given you, if you remember, that suppose if there is the carpenter, so he had an idea in his mind that there must be something on which a man can sit and comfort himself. So he had an idea about chair. So then he, according to that idea, carpenter made a chair. When the chair was made, that means the idea was the ultimate reality. The idea is real, and the carpenter imitated that idea. He copied that idea. Then he invented a chair. He made a chair. When the painter would come and he would see the chair, then he would be attracted a lot, and then he draw a painting. He saw the chair and then he made a painting, and then when he draw the painting, then that would be imitation of imitation. That means first time the chair was imitated by the carpenter, the idea was imitated, then the physical existence of chair came in this world, and then that physical existence is again imitated by the carpenter. So that is known imitation of imitation. That means that the poetry is removed twice from the reality. The idea is reality, then after the idea, the carpenter made the chair. That means it is removed once from the reality. When the chair is seen by the painter, and the painter painted, draw in painting, and that painting is removed twice from the reality. So this is the concept, that imitation of imitation. See, I hope कि I am making sense बेटा. जो idea था वो reality है. उस idea की imitation की carpenter ने. देन कारपेंटर ने चेयर बनाई, देन कारपेंटर की चेयर देखकर इमिटेशन की पेंटर ने. सो दैट्स व्हाई इट इज नोन एज इमिटेशन ऑफ इमिटेशन. So that means poetry has nothing to do with reality. It is based on imitation, and imitation is based on falsehood according to Plato. So this is the concept. But uh, Aristotle answered this query, and he just explained the concept of imitation. He just said that, yes, indeed, it's true that poet is a mediator. Poet imitates things. He repeated the example that, like, idea is reality. It's true. But when the carpenter imitated, but before going to imitation, let me give you an example from the imitation. Like Plato said that the imitation which is related to the poetry, that is useless, and it has no use. But here Aristotle disagreed. He just said that the poetry which is the imitation which comes in the domain of poetry, that has also usage as well. So he gave an example, the same example, that when the idea was there, so idea is reality, then carpenter copied that idea, and then he made the he made the chair. So that means the physical existence of the chair was missing from this world. When he imitated the idea, with that imitation, he made a chair, and that chair is very much helpful for the men, and it is helping us, and it has the great use in our society. So that means with the help of imitation, something extraordinary, something unique is created. A gap is filled in the room. There was a gap and there was the need of something, so that thing is done there. More importantly, then the carpenter, after the carpenter, then painter came there, and the painter saw the painting, and he drew an outstanding painting. When the outstanding painting was created, was drawn, that means in other piece of existence came there, and that painting was absent before this chair. इस chair को देखने से पहले उसकी absence थी, उसकी दुनिया में existence थी नहीं. But when the painter saw the chair, he made an excellent painting. So उस painting को आके दीवार पे लगा दिया है. Now it has increased the beauty of living room of the house. So that means it has the usage. So it cannot be said that the poetry has no use, and the poetry is imitation of imitation. If it is the imitation of imitation, then it is has also use. It is also important, and it is not the mother of lies, but actually it helps to create something unique, which was like the poetry is composed about injustice. So that means the concept of injustice was missing. So when the poet composed something about the topic, and he taught the morality, and he taught how to be a wise man, how to serve justice. So that means imitation of imitation is also useful, and it is also useful for our society. So it must not be discouraged, but it should be encouraged. Similarly, he also said that poetry is not the mother of lies, but actually it is based on the imagination and the ideal world. So, and poet never claims that his fiction is true. So how would you say that it is based on lies and it is the mother of lies? So it is injustice with poetry. It should not be done. I hope कि ये दूसरा जो चार्ज है वो आपको समझ में आया होगा बेटा. Move further. बेटा give me a minute. Give me a minute. मैं थोड़ा give me a minute. Yes, beta. Let me answer. Let me explain the charge of the answer of third charge. So here, let me go back to the third charge that what actually talks about. The third charge is it is nerves of abuse. That means poetry is the nerves of abuse. The concept of abuse is started from poetry. So it means Sydney rejects the poetry is the source of abuse, that it rejects the idea that the poetry is not the source of abuse. The concept of abuse is not being portrayed by the poetry. To him, it is people who abuse poetry. That means there are some people, they actually abuse poetry, they misuse poetry. Like I have discussed before, that there might be some people and they do not deserve to be poets, despite they compose poetry. When such kind of people will compose poetry, then that means they are abusing poetry. In that way, T.S. Eliot just said that the poetry is the language of scholars, and to compose poetry, one must be scholar. To understand poetry, one must be scholar. So it must not be written in the language of layman. It must not be written in the common language. If it would happen, then it will corrupt the poetry. It will corrupt the elements of the poetry, and it will corrupt the importance of the poetry. So that's why one must be a scholar to compose poetry, and one must be a scholar to understand poetry. So therefore, if common people would write, if the person who's not a scholar, if the person who do not know anything about the importance of the poetry and about the elements of the poetry, then when that person will write the compose the poetry, then obviously that will corrupt the poetry. So those people are the responsible for corrupting the poetry, but it has nothing to do with poetry itself. There is not problem with poetry, but there is problem with poet. Similarly, he said night the vice versa. Vice versa बेटा आपको बहुत easy concept है, आपको समझ में आया होगा. Some people say that the people are responsible, the poets are responsible for abusing and as well as the poetry. It is means the vice versa, the both are involved in the abusing, in the abuse. But here it is mentioned not the vice versa. Poetry is not involved in the abuse. Poetry has nothing to do with abuse. But there are some people, they are involved in this process. They are the one who abuse the poetry. They are the one who corrupt the minds of people. They are the people. They are corrupting the hearts of the people. They are the people. They are corrupting the younger generations through their stupid poetry. So see, more importantly, abuses are more nursed by the philosophy and history. Even though here Sir Philip Sidney is arguing that the philosophy and history, they both are the fields which nurse the abuse more than poetry. How? Because he described that in philosophy you will find the concept of battles, bloodshed, violence. In the history you will find both concepts. So he says that in poetry you will never ever find the concept of bloodshed, battles, and the violence. If there is the concept, then it would be in the domain of morality. Then the concept of battles is discouraged in the poetry. It's discouraged by the poets. The concept of bloodshed is discouraged by poets in the poetry. The concept of violence is discouraged. But over these three concepts, on contrary, poets always the poetry helps to maintain morality. It helps. Poetry discusses morality over battles and the battle bloodsheds. It talks about peace over violence. So that means poetry deals with morality. Poetry talks about peace. Poetry preaches peace, not the bloodshed, not the violence, not the battlefields. So that means poetry has nothing to do with abuse, even though there are people, they are corrupting the poetry, they are abusing the poetry. Even philosophy is involved in the abuse, the history is involved in the abuse, but poetry is not involved at all. So that's why it is not proper to blame poetry for abusing. Because if someone is not a poet, if that person don't deserve to be a poet, and that person is composing something is stupid, and that is corrupting the minds and the hearts of young generations, and that poetry is encouraging bad deeds in the society, and that is encouraging the immorality in the society. So it is not the fault of poetry, but it is the fault of that poet who's writing that kind of poetry. That means that poet is not the real poet, so that must be discouraged. Those poets should be discouraged. That poetry should be discouraged. So their poetry should be discouraged, not the overall poetry, not the poetry general. So it is the defense that that poetry has nothing to do with abuse, but actually they are people. I hope कि बेटा यहाँ तक आपको समझ में आया होगा. Now let's move back to the fourth charge and the final charge, which is Plato had rightly banished poets from his ideal world. See, now move back to the fourth charge. Answer of the fourth charge. See, beta, Sydney views that Plato in his Republic. I have talked a lot about Republic. मैंने इसके दो editions पढ़े हुए, तो that's why I always quote many things from Republic. So he wanted to banish the abuse of poetry, not the poets, actually the abuse of the poetry, which is done by the immoral man. If the man don't deserve to be a poet, even though when you go through from the Republics, it has 10 editions, and then there's the concept that he did not criticize the poetry itself, but actually he criticized on the poetry which is corrupting the minds and the hearts of the people. He criticized on those poets who do not deserve to be poets. So in on contrary, he actually was poet himself. So he banished those poets. He banished those people from his ideal work. He himself was not free from the poeticality, which we can find in his dialogues. His dialogues are written in the verse form. That means he had the influence of poetic way, the poems and the poetry. More importantly, Plato never says that all poets should be banished. He never said that all poets should be banished, but he only talked about those poets should be banished which are corrupting the minds and the hearts of the people. Those poets should be banished which are whose poetry is not educating us, whose poetry is not teaching morality, whose teaching is not teaching anything to us. So those poets should be banished, and those poets should not be encouraged at all.